And we are Canada's airline. We fly the flag across the entire globe.
In-flight experience.
We have over 1,000 movies, over 3,500 TV show episodes, 700 hours of audio. The internet in a lot of respects feels even better than home.
Wow.
Yeah. Let us entertain you. Let us treat you well. Let us use care and class to deliver an exceptional service.
Norman Haughton is the Director of In-Flight Entertainment and Connectivity for Air Canada. Norman has spent nearly 15 years with Canada's biggest airline.
Flying international, it feels mindless for you. It feels like you're in an ecosystem or an environment that was built or curated for you. We want Canadians, regardless of what your ethnic background is, to truly feel proud of the airline that's built for them. In a lot of respects, we are the largest procurer of any single item. Every career path you could think of exists within an airline.
What's next?
We're working on a few things. Soon enough, we'll be
Amazing.
2026 will be interesting. Get in flight and experience it.
We find it very interesting that the majority of you who watch and listen to this show aren't yet subscribed to our channels across Spotify, Apple, YouTube. It would mean the world to us if you can do us that small kindness. It allows us to continue to bring on amazing guests week after week and continue to provide you with amazing value and content. It's the only thing we'll ever ask of you. If you can hit that follow or subscribe button, it would mean the world to us. Thank you so much and enjoy the episode. So how long were you in, you said Bali?
Mm-hmm.
How long were you there for?
We're there for 8 days.
Nice. Personal
We did a
business?
couple, personal.
Nice.
Took the fam out there.
It's important to take vacations.
Oh, it's incredibly important to take vacations, dude.
It's as I get busier, I'm like, man, I really need to start making it a point to prioritize taking time off, but real time off, like disconnecting.
Yeah. My wife talks about it. She says, I sleep a lot better when I'm unplugged with the family.
Yeah.
Because it's that sense of, everybody's secure, at least for the responsibilities I have. And that's why we did that Southeast Asia trip, because, really went to unplug. It's a lot's going on.
Yeah.
We launched Wi-Fi. We did all sorts of cool stuff at AC. And yeah, that was a good trip.
It's been a busy few months, busy year. It feels like just constantly busy at Air Canada.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's been a few years, a busy few years.
Well,
this stuff is not overnight.
No. Well, let's start there. So for people who don't know who you are, sort of what's the backstory here? What do they have to know about you to understand the man sitting across from me?
I'm an immigrant. Moved here in 2008. Born and raised in Jamaica, the streets of Falmouth, Trelawney on the north coast, just outside Montego Bay. Spent a decent amount of my adult life in Kingston, ex-sailor.
Sailor,
yeah.
Like
yeah.
professionally? Wow.
I was
I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
How long did you do that for?
Did it for 3 years.
Okay.
It's an interesting career path, though.
I bet.
If you're a social butterfly, that doesn't work. And, I am definitely a social person.
Yeah.
So I think I expired there, but it did allow me to see the world, experience things that less than 0.25% of the world would ever get to experience, and immerse myself in other cultures, and languages, and food that normally I wouldn't have. So I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then moved to Canada, followed my heart, got married early, and we just built a life here. And my first real job was with Air Canada, so I've been rocking that ever since. Yeah, 15 years.
What did you start as?
Station attendant. So I was one of those guys below the wing, getting the bags on board.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay, so you really know what it's like to work through the different parts of an airline.
Oh gosh, yeah, this is my 8th job.
Eighth job, and how many years is that?
15 years.
Wow.
Yeah. The first, I would say 5 to 6 years, there's a lot of transitioning.
Okay.
Started off in baggage and became a mechanic, and, kind of worked my way through that maintenance world or tech ops world. And then eventually jumped into management, and, here I am.
What is it that people don't understand about working for an airliner?
Well, that it's its own ecosystem, its own economy. It's like almost every job you could think of, or almost every career path you could think of, exists within an airline. You know, it's a fully contained entity, and it, you know, you could have fun. You know, especially someone like myself, I still consider, you know, my days in below the wing as a station attendant being some of the funnest I've had. You know. Yeah, because you get to immerse yourself with airplanes.
Yeah.
So if you're a bit of an av geek, then yeah, it's really cool.
So the work you do now, what's the official title?
Yeah, interesting. So the work I do now, the official title is Director, In-Flight Entertainment and Connectivity. Okay. And, you know, that encompasses pretty much all the digital aspects, touch points that you see on board.
Yeah.
But we work with the technology providers for the screens, for, you know, Wi-Fi, satellite companies. We curate a package of entertainment options for customers. That's essentially the core of it.
I think sometimes as a passenger, and I never really, I kind of mindlessly, whenever I used to travel before this podcast, would get on a plane, just turn on the screen and then distract myself for the whatever number of hours. But I never really put any attention or thought behind what actually goes into all of that. Yeah. And ever since we started having Gents Talk on Air Canada, I started to sort of get little pieces about how that works. And I was like, wow, this is a whole thing. Like, this requires an entire team, an entire structure. There's so much that goes into getting content on, but also timely, as there's always new movies, there's always new shows, and shows now are taking off even more than ever. So like there's always a demand. And I think people, like, I'm sure you hear it, people want specific things. They want to be watching specific things.
Yeah, you know, we're a large airline. Sometimes, you know, I refer to us as the largest theater, right? Because we have screens on most of our jets. We have over 1,000 movies, over 3,500 TV show episodes, you know, over, last time I checked, 700 hours of audio. And that is a machine that has to be fed every single month, right? With massive turnover, as you know, because we have your stuff there. Yeah. It involves, you know, working with lawyers, procurement teams, digital teams to transfer files and transfer them securely, and then operations teams to execute, right, to get the stuff on board. So it definitely is a beast. Right. Yeah. And one I'm glad you know, you had the privilege of appreciating.
Yeah, funny story here that I think will be super relevant to this conversation. When we first talked about having Gents Talk on board, I actually thought this whole thing was a scam. I was like, there's no way an airliner wants to have a podcast on its flight, because I never, again, like, my mind always went into, okay, well, I'm just going to put on whatever the latest movie is and hope I haven't seen it so I have something to distract myself. And when that conversation started, I was like, wow, this is a real thing. But one of the things that you said to me that I really appreciated was this idea of having homegrown, authentic content on board the flights, and also telling people, like, hey, this stuff exists. Here's some things that you should consider that go beyond just the big movie titles that you've probably also already seen in theaters.
Yeah, you know, and a good litmus test is the response of our customers with the content, right? And I think working with you guys, we've seen really positive reactions to having, you know, almost organically this homegrown series that Canadians and people from Toronto especially can connect to, right? So yeah, I think it worked out well, and that's a part of our strategy, is to diversify the offerings, because we can, right? So yeah, executing for everybody is the mission. And
the in-flight experience piece, again, and the part of this conversation that intrigues me and interests me is because I want to use the word mindless, but not in a negative way, as in, like, I just wasn't thinking about it consciously. Right. I'd sit down, I'd turn on the screen, I'd play whatever interests me, you know, get whatever snacks, that kind of thing. And then that was kind of just the experience, and then you're off on your way type of thing. But there's a whole curation of that experience for people. Yeah. For those, because it's not just like a movie in a theater where you're there for maybe an hour and 30 to 2 hours. You're there for, in some cases, 6, 7, 8, 9 hours. That's a lot of experience that you and your team are kind of accounting for, that you have to sort of manage for people. What goes into that process?
A lot of thought. You know what? You hit the nail on the head there. That is part of the design. We don't want you to think about everything else, right? Think about getting from point A to point B, that product of going to Mexico or going to, Italy, as we were just discussing before this started, right? And let us entertain you, let us treat you well, let us use care and class to deliver an exceptional service, right? So it feels mindless for you. It feels like you're in an ecosystem or an environment that was built or curated for you, right? So that is part of the design process. And, to me, if I hear more of that, that is success.
Like from a content perspective, how are you deciding what content to produce or what type of content to start providing?
Yeah, so we use different tools, right? So there's the pre-curation, right? So we study what genres, what types of films, whether it's a show or a movie, by different regions of the world, right? And we see where the heat map's pointing us to. So that's one level. The other level is once we execute on the procurement strategy and a curation strategy, and the films are on board, then we look at engagement, right? Our customers engaging. But a misconception is, okay, well, if we get a Hindi film, well, the Hindi film is going to perform great across the entire network. Well, no, right? It's going to perform well
on specific
or
flights.
Not on the specific market that it was intended for. Right. So we go down to that level.
And so is there a scenario where you're curating different content for different routes?
Yeah, no, 100%. We have films specifically for East Asia, some of the different countries that make up that region. Right. The same with Southeast and South Asia. So absolutely.
Yeah, you're able to sort of curate a playlist based on the different routes that are, if someone's going to your point, they're going to Southeast Asia, they'll see something different than if someone is flying to Dubai, for example.
Correct.
And can we talk about the Wi-Fi piece?
Yeah.
And I want to start with a story there. I was on a flight back from Calgary, and I was like, suddenly my laptop, because I always connect and I'm just like trying to do stuff, and suddenly I was like, oh my God, I'm able to like send an email. I'm like, did I somehow sneak into the Wi-Fi system? Because I didn't know at the time that it was being provided now.
Yeah.
What's the story there? Like, what triggered all of that? Maybe start with the backstory of how we got to that, why it's important, and sort of what people can expect from it.
Yeah. So, in the product area of AC, or the customer experience side, I was brought in for that. Like that was a main mission, right? So back in 2015, I was brought over to, bring Wi-Fi in air and commercialize it. Yeah. We started off with what we would call dial-up. I don't know if the audience even knows what dial-up is.
I know what dial-up is.
You know what dial-up is.
Hey, Dad, can I use the internet?
Yeah. But essentially, that's what it felt like, right?
Yeah.
But it was revolutionary. Back in 2015, being able to send a text message was that's cool, right? Being able to send an email was really cool. Being able to load a web page was dope, right? Like that was like, wow, this is an experience I didn't know we could do. And then over time, we've matured the product. Right. As new solutions came on market, we sought after them, and in a lot of regards, we've helped as an airline, the manufacturers of different solutions deliver what we believe to be the standard for aviation.
And so, right now, when people go on an Air Canada flight, what can they expect from the Wi-Fi piece? If
you're flying international, you can expect a decent rate, pay for the internet, and you'll have, I'd say, high quality service. If you're flying within North America, which includes the Caribbean and Mexico, what you'll get is, if your airplane number is appended to your booking, is enter your last name and seat number, and we'll unlock fast free internet. So, essentially you could do most things that you could do at home. Some things we still restrict because we're trying to maintain, I would say, some level of cordial behavior within the cabin. And we don't want people, on speakerphone having all sorts of conversations and that being multiplied.
Yeah.
So, we're still at least maintaining restrictions there. But beyond that, then, the internet's there.
Is there anything else outside of that's still not quite there yet?
So on the on the majority of our fleet, we have what we call high capacity geostationary satellite connectivity. What that means is
sounds fancy.
The satellites that we're using are 38,000 kilometers out in space. So you have this thing called latency, right? And it's essentially the time it takes for a packet to get to its intended destination and to return back to the device. Now,
and that affects basically like the lag, essentially,
exactly.
right? Like your ability to actually see something in real time versus like a buffering or a lag.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's why applications like streaming, and generally the benchmark for fast in aviation is the notion of streaming. Streaming works really well because it buffers, right? Yeah. So it'll be 5 to 10 second lag before it starts, but once it starts, it's going on forever.
Right.
Now, if you decide to game on that system that requires low latency, you're not going to be a winner in that game, right? Because you're adding almost a second latency between your actions and what happens on the server on the ground.
Right.
But that said, we've launched now low latency solutions. We've started with the regional fleet, so the CRJ 900s that operate out of Jazz. They have a solution there that, you can game, you could do, the internet in a lot of respects feels even better than home. And that's a technology that we're perpetually studying to see if we can, introduce that on some of the larger aircraft that do all sorts of different missions.
I want to ask you, for your personal, this is not AC related, but your personal perspective on in-cabin etiquette.
Yeah.
What are do's and don'ts?
Do's for me, well, let me start with the don'ts. Don't be on speakerphone. Don't be listening to your music so everybody else can hear.
Yeah.
Basic stuff like that, like keep your notifications on silent. Because it's a cabin that's tight, you know what I mean? Like it's your neighbor is really close to you.
Yeah.
And I always say, like, do things that you'd want your neighbor to do, right? And you can imagine if two people were doing the exact same thing, annoying each other, well, that doesn't spell out for a great experience.
Right.
So now on the do's, bring your headphones, right? Always use your headphones when you're listening and watching content on your own device.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why the screens at the seat back don't have a speaker. Right? Yeah. Because they're really personal things, right? They're one-to-one relationship. So that's pretty much it. And if whatever content you're watching, just be mindful that you're in a space that somebody else could see what's on your device. So just be a bit more mindful.
I wonder, how in the world of streaming, podcasts, YouTube videos, Twitch streamers, that kind of thing. Do you envision a scenario where those types of, podcasts are obviously already offered, but YouTube videos, Twitch streamers, that kind of thing, do you envision a scenario where those would become an offering?
Yeah. Look out. No, it's I would say what? The short form content has just took off, I would say, over the last couple of years, right? Especially, I think the pandemic fueled this insatiable appetite for just snackable sized content that's hitting you every, almost like a different
that dopamine rush of just so what's next.
We're working on a few things.
Okay.
That's all I'll say for now. But we're working on a few things. So look out. 2026 will be interesting.
Yeah, no, definitely. How do you mentally prepare for these kinds of projects? These are sizable projects, and the outcome of this project can significantly alter the airliner's future. Like, these are not just like small segments of things that you're upgrading or updating. Like, you're introducing, for example, in the Wi-Fi case, like a new thing, and you're leading the way in doing it in a lot of scenarios. How do you mentally prepare individually as Norman to start this kind of a project and go, okay, I'm going to take this on, and the outcome is almost make or break?
Yeah, I would say the answer to that is it's actually less personal, right? What do? I prepare myself to go on a campaign to convince everybody involved, and even on the purview and the peripherals, that this is the right thing, right? So if you convince the army that, hey, going here is the right thing, Well, guess what? It makes going here a lot easier because there are less things that will go wrong because people are passionate about delivering a vision, right? That I would say is probably the most important part. Getting the team that will execute, getting their buy-in, right? Building that internal passion for what we're doing. And once you do that, then the delivery will happen, right? Come hell or high water, right? This thing will happen. And that was, I would say the story of free Wi-Fi that started a few years ago.
Well, as you're talking, it makes me think about the fact that you're essentially in a position of leadership. And I'm always fascinated by people who lead teams because I'm curious to learn from them on what makes a leader a good leader. Because there's people in managerial positions who manage people but aren't necessarily good leaders. For you to move people in a certain direction collectively requires a certain amount of authentic leadership. In your mind, what does it take to be a good leader?
Well, what I think a good leader is somebody who's transparent, who's supportive, and, you allow for mistakes, right? Because without mistakes, then everything will be perfect. Everything's perfect, and the world's boring. That's how I look at it, right? Mistakes can sometimes be fun, right? Because you're learning moments that, hey, we could take what just happened and re-engineer the process to ensure that doesn't happen again. But it's always something that we could refer to as a baseline of what not to do.
And in some cases, that mistake actually opens the door to an improvement that didn't even exist prior.
Exactly. So to me, a good leader is a people person, somebody who can communicate well, somebody who can empower a sense of drive and passion through their teams. And as long as you can exude those types of emotions out of your team, then your team's always going to be a high performing team, right? So at least that's the way I've attempted to lead the teams that I've been blessed with leading. Is there a way you try to show up every day as a leader, as a person who's kind of positioning the vision of where this is going next? Is there a certain way you want to show up every day? Man, showing up authentic, I think, is super important, both from a diverse point of view and just being there and, first of all, being there for the people who are doing the work, right? And also being there for yourself and being honest about how you feel, right? That just makes feedback easier, right? So when you're communicating either one-on-one or with your team, they know that what you're saying comes truly from the heart and you mean what you say. And you know what I mean? Yeah. Versus the which I've seen in the past, almost like a cloak and mirror, I'm gonna say one thing, but I don't necessarily truly mean it. I think that type of leadership is probably outdated, and now we're getting into one of those. I'm just gonna be Norman, and if I'm Norman and I care about you as a team member, then I feel like I'm gonna gain your trust. We're both gonna trust each other, and then the next phase is me convincing you that, hey, this is the right thing to do, right? And if you're convinced, then unequivocally, at least I've seen, that team member will deliver at the highest level.
Way back in the day, I used to work in a retail job, and I had to explain something to someone, and I kept sort of giving them excuse after excuse, and they just kept getting more agitated. And someone came up to me and said, "Samir, why don't you actually just tell them that you don't know?" And I'm like, "Are you crazy? If I tell them I don't know, they're gonna get more mad." And they're like, "Are they gonna get more mad than they already are?" No. So try it next time. And sure enough, I tried it, and I just said to the person, like, "Hey, listen, honestly, I don't know the answer to that question, but what I can do is go get you that information. That I can do." And it worked. And I think that, to your point, it sounds simple just to be honest about it. And I think there's a fear sometimes of saying, "I don't know," might make you lose credibility, sound dumb, whatever the case may be, but it's not true. You're just simply saying, "I don't know something. Let me go get that information for you."
Exactly. And nobody knows everything, right? So there's a bit of humility that you have to innately have to be able to communicate that way. And I think maybe we didn't touch on it, but humility is also a very important part of what I think is a pillar of leadership.
Emotional intelligence, essentially.
Incredible.
Like all around.
Yeah, of course.
I find the best leaders are emotionally intelligent. They're able to empathize, but also their understanding of the way the person is, maybe the way they like to receive information too, right? Like there's some people who maybe in the moment, it's not the best time to criticize them. It's more like, okay, have you had a moment to cool down from whatever that mistake was? Great, let's have a chat type of thing.
Being emotionally intelligent enough to say, hey, this is not the right time to deliver this specific message.
Yeah.
It's a great, it's a great way to look at it.
Amazing. Norman, thank you so much for your time.
Of course, man.
This was wonderful.
Always a pleasure.
And it's so cool because now the podcast, Gent's Talk, that is onboard Air Canada will feature you.
Oh, and
we'll get to watch it together on the flight.
We talked about that.
Yeah, we
We're
did.
Yeah. Let's do it.
No, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you sharing this with me. Is there anything, if you had one more thing to say to the audience about Air Canada, what would that be? What do you want people to know?
Well, what I want people to know is Wi-Fi is now fast and free, right? That was a big core message I want to deliver. Enroll yourself in Aeroplan. Ensure that you append your airplane number to your check-in, book that flight, get in flight and experience it. And soon enough, international will be free and we'll be global with free connectivity. It allows you to stay in touch with your family, friends, loved ones, stay productive while in flight, and that's on top of all the amazing work that our my counterparts are doing on the lounge side and on the in-flight culinary side. So we want Canadians, regardless of what your ethnic background is, to truly feel proud of the airline that's built for them.
Amazing.
Get out and fly.
Actually, one more question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
How long did you say you were with AC now?
15 years.
15
I
years.
just hit the 15-year mark.
Is there a piece of advice that if you can go back in time and give a young Norman 15 years ago about his journey with Air Canada that you'd give him?
Yeah, stay the course. Everything that led up to today and what's going to feed into tomorrow is because of all the experiences I've had, right? Almost growing up at Air Canada, seeing the different aspects of the airline. That is a part of my own internal superpower, something that I would have that a lot of people, won't.
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, my friend.
Of course.
This was wonderful. We got to do a part 2.
Yeah.
On an airplane.
That would be cool.
That would be cool.
Let's do it.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody.